All right. I just hit the record button, so we're going to officially kick off class. So great to see our Patreon members that are here with us live. Ladies, always great to see you. And then for anyone that is unable to join tonight's class, we always will record these. So if you can't make it live, I know that life and dinner and kids and obligations pop up. So I'm always going to be here to offer you a class, whether you can be here live or not. So I'm excited to have you here. Tonight's inspiration is a beautiful abstract painting. And as I was talking to some of the folks earlier about this, it seems like it has a lot of water movement on the underside. And then it has these beautiful, long, skinny lines that kind of create some flow. And we don't always do abstract paintings. Sometimes they can make people a little nervous because I will give you some structure, but you get to make some choices on your own about what you want to do and why. So have fun with it. If you feel like you get stressed at all, just kind of take a deep breath and we'll work through that together because there's lots of tips and techniques I can do to help you. So the supplies that you'll need for tonight is I am painting on acrylic paper. I have a small plate next to me. This is a palette paper to mix colors. So you want a small plate or something to mix colors on. It's kind of like a waxy paper. Something to paint on. So canvas, acrylic paper, whatever you got. I'm using acrylic paints tonight to keep it nice and simple. I have blue and yellow and red and black and white. I also have a green in front of me, but I'll be doing a lot of blending over here. So you can kind of see how you can mix basic colors together to get different tones and hues. So I'll always do that on the side for you. You'll need an array of brushes. You will need a big brush, a 1/2 inch or bigger, for doing some of the background blending. So grab a bigger brush if you have one. It can be bigger than this. This is just typically what I use in these classes. And then more importantly, grab a couple smaller brushes. These ones are probably one of the ones I'll be using. They just have a fine point. The longer the bristles, the better. So you can do some long, fluid, flowy motions like that, right? Here comes some story. All right. So those are some small brushes. If you have any brushes with like longer bristles, you can grab those too. So whatever you got, you can use those. You'll need a cup of water to rinse your brushes and a paper towel for any messes. Okay, I always have that on hand. So you're not gonna need a pencil or anything like that tonight unless you wanted to grab one, but we're just gonna have some fun adding some fluidness to the background. Now that we have more people that have joined, I'm just gonna re-upload the inspiration for today's class into the chat window so folks can take a look at visually what this looks like. And if you have an opportunity to click on the image and open it up big and take a look at the background, feel free. So we'll talk through the background first together. So for me, I really look at this and I see water in the background. You may not see water, but I'm going to focus on different blues and greens and teals, and I'm going to create some movement. And if you wanted to just do like large movement areas, you can do some large areas. If you wanted to do lots of movement, you could do lots of movement. It's totally up to you. This is the abstract part of class. So I'm just going to start out by grabbing my blue and we'll start mixing some blues and greens that you like. Now, if you don't want to do blues and greens, you can pick another palette. You could do, purples and pinks if you wanted to, right? As your background color, but I'm going to do blues and greens. So this is let's flip this over. This is a royal blue color here. And I'm going to put a little bit more of this down here. I'm going to do kind of two piles, two areas, because I'm going to be making some greens. There we go. And I'm going to grab a little bit of white because I'm going to want to lighten this up a little bit. And I'm going to put the white just over here nearby. That's not going to work. Let's use one of these. So I'm going to put some blue and white on my plate. And I'm just kind of getting ready. I'm going to get my big brush out. I'm going to use some of this white here. Perfect. And I'm just going to start mixing a blue color that I like. So I'm just going to find a nice starting point. It could be dark or light. And I'm probably going to use some dark blues and some medium blues. So just start mixing and finding a color that you like. I might start with like a medium blue, which is really beautiful. And you can see I'm still keeping some of this dark blue over here. You don't always need to mix all of your paint. You can kind of retain some paint for some other shades, right? So the way I'm going to approach this is I'm going to do light blues and dark blues. I'm going to weave in some teals. So I'm just going to have some fun and just get some paint down. Just doing some basic coverage. We all know that acrylic paintings are all about layering and just starting somewhere. And I'm kind of doing vertical motion in today's class. So you can see the orientation of my painting is vertical or portrait. Just getting some basic color down. And I'm kind of starting out with like a medium kind of color blue. But as this is wet, I'm going to come into my cobalt, and I'm just going to bring some cobalt in here too. Now you can add as much or as little motion as you wish here. You can practice your blending techniques of like one color going into another. I have this big light right here. If this becomes a problem, there, sorry, it's a little wet. Let's see if I turn this off. There we go, that's better. And I might create a little motion here. You can have fun. I'm not going to go over halfway though with these blues. I'm going to start adding in some greens too. But you can see how I'm kind of bringing in some of the lighter blues to the darker blues. And using a really soft hand, I'm kind of playing with these blending techniques. I'm kind of blending one to another. So with any abstract, one of the things that I find most successful is just kind of letting go of expectations on what this should be. I may have told you this story in the past, but I went to a class one time with my mom. It was probably 15 years ago. And her and I are very different artists. And the lady was basically like, okay, just start painting. And all of us started sweating because we just didn't know what that meant. And it was really just about like letting go of like what you feel like you think you wanted to paint and just kind of going with your instincts. Can be very liberating to just go for it and to try something new. Because if you paint something you don't like, or if you wanted to evolve it, you could. And that's really what this class was. And we both started painting, and just very strange things started happening. My mother started painting like Medusa with like snakes coming out of a woman's head, which she thought was very strange. And I started painting this like underground scene with people, and it was very strange. But it was a really cool opportunity just to be playful with paint and kind of get some colors down and don't think about it. So for me, I'm just being really playful, right? I'm just bringing a couple blues together, setting the scene here for our background. I created a little movement. If you need to hold your brush a little further back, you could always consider that. If you wanted to bring in a little bit of motion, maybe I want to bring in some of my lighter blue, a little bit of that, you could. I'm going to bring in some teals in a minute. But just have fun. I want you to paint this background anything you want it to be. I'm going to go from blues to teals to blues and then end with some teals and greens. So I want you to paint this background anything that you want. It could be lights or darks. For me, it's going to be a mix of both. So I'll transition here into my teals in just a minute, but I'm just kind of showing you, and we're not doing any of those funky lines yet. We're just doing a solid color for the background. So kind of let go of expectations. had some fun with my lights and dark blues. And I'm gonna mix a light teal. So if anyone wants to know how to make a teal, it's blue and a little bit of yellow. It's gonna clean this well. And it's gonna be quite a bit of white too. So if I grab a little bit of blue here, and this is like a cobalt blue, got a basic blue, and I'm gonna mix some green with it. It's gonna give me a greenish blue. And you just put a little yellow at a time to make this greenish blue color. And you don't need to make a lot of it because I'm gonna bring some white in to make it this tealish color, this green color teal. So watch this. If it looks a little blue to you, guess what? Add a little bit of yellow. And this is where you just take your time and you find the colors that you like, as always. So I want you to use blues and greens, or if you want to do purples and pinks or reds, this is you choose what you want your background colors to be. And then I am just going to have some fun. I might create a little bit of movement. You could use water to kind of blend. So I'm gonna have some fun with some movement here. So maybe this will come in. Maybe I'll create a little bit of movement. I don't know. I'm just gonna roll with it here. I'm just gonna experiment and be open-minded to these shapes. And these are all flat colors. If you wanted to kind of bring in some blues, you could mix blues in here. It's totally up to you. We're going to be covering up a lot of this with lots of skinny lines. So this is all just kind of fun background texture. You could make this more yellowy. Have some fun with blending colors. I put a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white on my brush. You can see how I'm just kind of, I'm in the moment. I'm not over analyzing this. One of the things I can do to help with the blending is I can get some water on my brush and I can soften one color into another. See how it's up at the top here? I dip my brush in water and I'm bringing this teal kind of over on top of the blue. See how it just softened the edge? Kind of softened it in. Don't hesitate to use a little water to soften, especially while the paint is a little bit wet. I'm kind of pushing down a little bit to soften and blend it in on that edge. You could use your finger to smudge. You could use your paper towel. With a really light brush stroke, it'll actually blend for you. So I'm not pushing down hard. Once the blending is happening, it's kind of like gentle sweeping. And I'm kind of bringing this lighter color out a little bit. And you can see it just kind of soften the transition from one to another. And you can continue to change the shapes if you have any shapes. I'm just going really soft, dragging these colors around. Fun. You can see I have a little, I tucked in a little bit of yellow. I might go, I want this to be a little bit more teal, so I'm going to come back and get a little bit more teal. And then I'm going to approach this with a nice contrasting color here next to it. So I'm going to use a navy blue or a darker blue as a color next to this. I might do like a little bit of a dollop or a drop here. You can make some really strong contrasting curves like this if you want to, like come down and come back up maybe. You could try that. Might get you inspired for what's coming next. So play with how you're turning and moving your brush around. It's quite fun. If you wanted to make a navy blue, which I think I will, you can use a little bit of black to darken the blue if you wanted to. But these good contrasting colors of light blues, dark blues, lighter teals, navies, and then I'll probably do a light blue after that. So you can play with what you want your lights and your darks to be, but that's something for you to think about if you wanted to do that or not. Just going to make a little bit of a navy here if I can, without mucking my colors up too much. A little black with a little blue will give you a darker blue. And I might just do a little bit of that in here. So thinking ahead, a color of a line that I may put in this navy space would be a lighter color line. So it stands out amongst the crowd here. So you can kind of see where we're going with this. And I'm just having fun. I'm kind of just filling in this space. Again, we're just doing the background right now. Might put a little bit of this darker contrast over here just to see how it works. You're welcome to switch to a smaller brush if you want to. I am not. But I'm kind of having fun, kind of following my shapes. Just kind of dancing around. So I have some fun contrasting colors. I'm going to clean my brush. That's good contrast for right now for me. There is like a little bit of reds and purples tucked in. We can always do that after. But I'm going to do a lighter color. So again, I'm trying to keep in mind doing like lighter, light, dark, light, dark. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but I'm going to add in some kind of fun, deep colors now, like some of these beautiful lighter colors. And then I'll end up with some greens over here at the end. So just to show you, I'm going to add some green up here in the corner. And maybe I'll tuck in some greens within this space. So you can see over here, I'm having fun kind of blending and playing with colors. Feel free to do the same. You may have less colors than me. You may have more. The goal of this step is just to have lots of colors that you like, kind of one blending to another. If they don't blend into one another, don't worry about that. It's no big deal. This is all just background. We're going to come in and add some really fun, colorful lines on top of this. Mine doesn't really look like water. It's okay. I'm in the moment here. I'm focused on not being critical. That is by far more important than anything else. Clean off your brush. Sometimes folks like to use different brushes. From one step to another, you can. I'm going to create a little bit of a lighter contrast in this middle zone. Lighter contrast is okay. See how this is really light? I wasn't planning on it, but with a lighter contrast zone of our abstract area, we would put a darker line, or darker lines or darker details within this space, right? For it to contrast with that space. So that's what we'll be playing with as we add our secondary details. Finding those contrasting colors to create movement, if that's what we decide to do, right? Everybody's going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to come in here and just create a little bit of a glow on the interior of this dark line. Wasn't planning on it. Maybe I put a little bit of water on my brush. I'm gonna give everybody 5 solid minutes. I'll check in with everybody in 5 minutes to see how this background is going. I don't want to rush anyone. This is one of the things where it may take some of us, you know, a half an hour to dial in this background to be what we want it to be. It may take some of us longer than that, right? It's about just kind of feeling and like being a part of the experience of kind of creating an abstract background. You're going to figure out what colors you like, what colors you want to add. I'm creating blending by having a little water on my brush, and I was kind of softening one layer to another. Maybe I play with some of the contrasting shapes over here. I want you to be happy with what your background appears to be. It can be, you could have really solid areas of paint color. Like over here, I could just have this be really solid blue. And I might just make this solid blue, and then I'll transition to a little bit darker of a blue. So keep an eye on the clock. Let's see here. You could do texturing if you wanted to add some texture. This is you, right? Like there's nothing you can do right or wrong in this. Like do kind of like what you feel is right. I could add in some texture here if I wanted to. This is abstract. This is like not knowing where you're going. And you don't have to do what I'm doing. Typically when you do abstract work, you're not typically painting with others, so that you feel less judged. But I'm being really open to the experience tonight. So I am just gonna be myself, which I'll encourage you to be. If you don't like this texture work I'm doing, you don't have to do it. I'm just being playful. Kind of looks like a dragon a little bit right there. It's a little scary. I'm not sure if I like the dragon that just happened, but we'll figure that out. And I could kind of swipe over all of this too. I might use this dark bit, and I might take my brush and just do some smoothing and keeping some of the color. Look at that. Doesn't matter. It's fun to try something and then to just smudge over it. Like it doesn't matter. That's a really fun part about art. If you don't like something, you just paint right over it. And I got some really fun, rich lights and dark blues out of that little experiment, and I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. So I want you to be happy with the background. You're going to get to a point and be like, Megan, I'm done. I'm not going to touch it anymore. I'm going to let it dry. You do that when you're ready. Don't touch it. I'm happy with my like other areas. I'm keeping it really simple. I'm not going to overdo it because I'm going to use those tiny detailed lines to kind of incorporate additional space. So everybody's doing that. I'm going to go find a nice skinny brush to use for some of the lines. So I'll be right back, but feel free to continue to work. And you are going to get to a point when you're done. I'll show you these really cool brushes that are still in the plastic. And these are the ones, you may or may not have these on hand. These are nice long tip brushes. Look at these. These are like, I don't know the official art name or the art supply name for these types of brushes, because I actually didn't go to art school, which many of you know. I'm a self-taught artist. But I'm going to use this one because it's really pretty and it's going to help me get some long fluid lines. So we're going to use this one right here. Look at that. So beautiful. Hasn't been touched. Many of you probably have brushes that look like these. And this is fine, like this long number 2, if you have a long tip number 3 or even a number 1, use anything that you got, you'll be just fine. Because I'll teach you how to roll. And you're basically gonna, there are a lot of paint management in our next step, which is about managing how much paint is on your brush. You can kind of spin and roll your brush in the paint. Adding water to the next step, like mixing your paint with a little water, will make it nice and smooth and fluid for some of our next details. Sometimes it's called a rigger brush. Thank you. I appreciate that. A rigger brush. Love it. So I'll look around. If anybody wants to use the chat window to tell me how you're doing, if you need more time, or if you feel like you're doing pretty well with your background, or you can give me a thumbs up via Zoom reaction, whatever you want. Let me know how you're doing and if how much more time, or if you're good to go.
I would like more time.
Yep, no worries. Mine is not feeling done, so we'll give it some more time here. We're at 6:26 Eastern, so I'll do a solid 4 more minutes. And I might play with some dark contrasting blues here. Let's see what this looks like. Maybe I'll play with some darker contrasting blues, kind of coming into this space. That's black. Come in here. Just gonna feather this in a little bit. You may want to add more contrast on one side or another. I want to kind of keep this corner on the lighter blue side, so I'm gonna mix a little bit more lighter blue. Not that light. But you're gonna get to a point where your background is gonna be done for the most part. We're gonna add lots of that fluidity on top. A lot of those fun details. That's gonna create some fun movement. And you may have an idea or a plan for tonight's class. And I just wanted to say, like, that is okay. Like, if you have an idea of like what you want to do, that's fine. Sometimes with abstracts, you can have an idea or a plan. Other times you can just be in the moment and just see what happens. And believe it or not, a lot of artists who have a brand, some artists have brands, right? And they have colors that are associated with their brand, and they have forms that are associated with their brand. Sometimes they go into abstract art and they have an idea of like what colors they want to use, or what form, like really playing with different forms along the way, but having an idea of different forms they may want to play with, right? So it's okay to go in with some plans if you want them, but it's okay if you don't. And I say that because everyone's different. I was watching a TV show of my son this afternoon, and these little number block creatures were talking about how, I want to get it wrong, how like they're talking about art on the show, and they were talking about how art is what you want it to be, and it's about showing how you're different than everyone else. And I'm like, this is just so true. It is, it's so true. I was like, it was just so relevant. So I'm putting in a little bit more green kind of coming in into this space here. And these are the magical things that happen when you keep working in an area, right? You expand spaces, you add more shapes and dimensions. And you can see I'm using a really light hand, a little water on my brush. And this will continue to evolve. Now everybody's going to be done, quote unquote, done at different times. So I want to hold as much space that I can for you to play with details, one step at a time. Kind of fun creating these tiered layers. If you go really soft with your brush, you can kind of create tiered layers. There's really kind of soft rings that are happening. I'll try to bring this a little closer so you can see it. See these like soft tiers that I've created with a little water. So this is where I say as an artist, I'm going to stop touching it. I'm gonna turn my light back on. There you can see some of that light. I was getting some reflection from the wetness, but you can see more of the color now. I'll leave my light on for a minute. And now we're just gonna let it dry. So I encourage you to make some finishing touches. If you want to keep working, of course, this class is recorded. So take your time and join us for the second part when you're ready. But I'm just going to take a minute to clean my brush. And then find a couple thin brushes that you can use for some of our next steps. And I'll talk through some of our next steps. I'm not going to jump in quite yet because we're going to let our backgrounds dry. But as I reflect on our inspiration, there's a lot of curving movement, and it's not like circular movement. It's very free-handed movement. Now, I'm going to encourage you to do what you're comfortable with. My big brush is clean. I'm just going to put it to the side. I'm going to encourage you to be mindful and thoughtful of what colors you use and where. So on some of our mid-tone blues, I may use a teal color because it's going to stand out on it. Maybe I'll use yellows, mix yellow and white together. Maybe I'll use some light pinks or purples, or dark blues on some lighter areas. So I want you to think about that contrasting color that you can put on as a line dimension. Now, if you have curling, wacky lines like me, you can follow those or lightly follow those, or you can do your own different shapes and forms. I intentionally did some curvatures, some of this water-like movement to follow those roughly. I'm not going to go right up against the edge, but I'm going to go near it, right? So that's going to be my approach for tonight. Some of these areas, there'll be overlap, but I'm really going to keep the lines clearly separated from one another. And there's going to be lots of twists and turns. So that's kind of my approach, but I'm going to be playing with lots of different colors along the way. Is anyone interested in sharing their background before we jump in to see the before? Sharon went super simple. Sharon, I appreciate you. She's like, Megan, I'm keeping it really calm here. Awesome. 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 Let's see what I went a little wacky. Oh, Jill went a little wacky too. All right, Jill, I appreciate you. Nice. Cool. I love it. All right. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. I'm going to go ahead and back and pin my screen. So find one of those one or two smaller brushes that you have. And I'm going to start with a white contrasting color. And I might do white in like lots of areas, right? You know how we sometimes use one color and then we'll put it in different spots. I got my brush a little bit wet. I'm going to get some white paint over here. Now with my white paint, I'm going to put a dollop of water over here on my palette paper. 2 dollops of water. Ooh, with a little bit of maybe 3 dollops of water. with a little white paint, and it becomes a little milky, right? It becomes a little more liquid. I'm gonna just start the process. So I'm gonna leave some blue space over here, but I'm gonna start at the bottom. You can either start at the top and work your way down, or you can start at the bottom and work your way up. I'll do it both ways. And I want these lines to be a little, not so, they don't need to be perfectly rounded straight like that. I want you to have a little bit of a loose hand. I'm holding my brush further back. And I'm just gonna do, I don't know, I might do 2 of these. And maybe I'll do another one over here in the middle somewhere. Have your hand, doesn't have to be. And you can go all the way up to the top. So maybe you can add as many of these as you want. Maybe don't add more than 5 or 6 just to start. But I'm using the white in the darker areas because it's contrasting. I'm using a really light hand. The water helps significantly. Give your wrist a little wiggle. Go nice and slow. I'm gonna fix this top part right here. I don't know what's going on with that. Just take your time and enjoy the process. I'm going to and I'm primarily going from the bottom to the top. A little bit of a detail there. A little bit of like a half line there. You kind of create a little texture, but just doing a little bit of a half line here or there. This is where you can kind of make some fun choices in the process. Maybe this will sphere off one to another. Maybe this will bloom. And that's it. Just pick one color. For me, I have 4 or 5 of these major white lines. And I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to go to the next color. Because I can always come back and add more white. It's better to do less now and go back in and add white because we're going to add lots of different colors in here. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to want to add some teal to some of the green over here and in some of the blue. You could also just jump into the yellow if you wanted to, or the pinks. So you pick whatever color's next for you. I'm just gonna put my fancy brush down and I'm gonna mix a teal color over here because I know I'm gonna need it. So pick your next color, blend it on your plate first. Put your fancy tip brush down. Use another brush to mix if you need to. So I'm doing like a seafoam green. Apparently that's the color that I'm using tonight. And this color is a little lighter, so I'm going to use this color also on a darker background, right? And then I'll use the darker colors on the lighter colored areas. See where I'm going with this. So this is a nice brush. It's got a nice fine point on it. I could totally use that one too. But taking a couple dollops of water to thin out. And it's optional to use the water technique, but it makes the gliding so much easier. And this is where I'm going to have some fun with some movement. We're going to have at least 20 lines on here, ladies and gents. I might add a little bit of yellow to this. Have some fun, add a little bit of yellow. Do lots of different lines and textures. Try to keep a little spacing in between some of these lines. You can see where you want to put lighter colors. You can put lighter colors on lighter colors, you're just not going to see them as well. Give your wrist a little wiggle to kind of create a little bit of like natural layering. Hold your brush a little farther back. Okay, so it's really fun just to kind of, you can see what the contrasting colors are, right? Putting the white on the darks and these and this teal. And then we'll do the dotting technique after. So let's see. So I'm using my lighter greens. That means anywhere it's darker, I can put some of this lighter green. And you want to hold space for any pinks and purples if you wanted to do that. So that's why I'm only doing like 4, 5, 6 of these colors at a time. It's kind of like when you do the rainbow, you have room to add in everything you want to add. You could even take some of your navy or some of your darker colors. Watch this, a little bit of the navy. Anywhere you want to add a little contrast. You can add more contrast with a darker color. Look at this, on a lighter area. Isn't that beautiful? So you could be totally, hating what we're doing. This is just in the moment. You go at your own pace. You make your own choices here. Abstract art means different things to different people. So I just want you to know that if you want to take a totally different approach to tonight's class, you're welcome to. You will not offend me. But I'm more so here to guide you through the experience of letting go and having some fun. So I'm going to probably save some of this dark. I'm going to do more layers in here. This is like a navy blue with a little water over here. Let's add a little bit of that over here. Some really cool turns and twists that are happening in here. Ooh, a little water is really helpful so your brush doesn't get caught around some of these corners. Have a little bit of a loop-de-loop I'm creating right here, which is kind of fun. Kind of lean back in your chair and you can make some choices around what you want to add and where. Let's see here. And then I have white background over here, a light color. So this is a great spot for a little bit of a darker contrasting line. But I'm going to brighten things up here. I'm going to mix it up. So I have lots of blues and greens. I'm going to go to I'll do pink next. Why not? I'm going to do yellow too. And then I'll use purple as like an accent. So let's make a pink. And I'm going to do like a light bubblegum pink because they have that as a really beautiful accent color in here and I really like it. I'm not a pink girl, which many of you probably know, but I'm going to try something new here. If anyone has any questions, please let me know, but I'm sure you're all working away. I'm gonna pre-mix a color that I like using a different brush. Before I jump in, and keep that pink out of the green and out of your blue. Otherwise you're gonna get purple or you're gonna get brown or you're gonna get a color you don't like, which for me, I'm pretty close to my greens here. So that's pretty risky of a brown, but I'm gonna make it a little bit, and you can play with the right color, get the right pink you want, get the right yellow. I'm gonna be mixing yellow and white together. So that's like a pink. Yeah, I think that's probably good. I'm bringing just a little bit of red in at a time to get the right hue. All right. All right. Here we go. All right. So with my pink, I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna figure out, and I'm not doing any of these little dotting techniques yet. I'm just doing lines primarily right now. But I'm going to add in some pink lines, lots of places. So I'm just gonna start. Let's see. All right. It's a little scary, but you just gotta kind of jump in. And I'm just following some of my shapes. Again, I'm gonna add a couple dollops of water. My water's a little blue. Guess what? It's not gonna mucky your pink, so don't worry about that. But paint management, spin and wipe off some of the paint on your brush if you need to, so it's not too thick. So the pink is nice little contrast. I'm gonna put some major bends of pink in here. So fun. And I'm gonna keep my wrist nice and loose. And I'm trying to stay in my lane a little bit, which means I'm trying to maintain the same structure and flow where I can. And as the artist, it's up to you on how many of these lines you want to add and where, okay? It kind of goes without saying, but I wanted to say it just so you know. You can go as dramatic with details as you want tonight, or as simple. I'm going to create a second tone of pink. It's going to be a little darker because it's an idea that I have. Making it over here. Ooh, it's kind of like I don't want to say a hot pink, but it's getting there. And I'm gonna do that as a complementary color here to what we're doing here with this pink. Okay. It's just gonna be a darker contrast, but it's just gonna complement the pink that I've started. So I'm kind of gonna go nearby with this darker pink. You don't have to do this. I'm just talking through my thought process on the idea. So it's kind of like two lines that are they're near each other. They're kind of dancing and flowing. So I have a lot going on, which is fine. I'm going to decide when to stop, when it's right for me. But I'm not done with these pinks yet. So I'm going to kind of come in. You can decide if you want a lighter pink or a darker pink. It's totally up to you. The water, again, is really helpful. But lean back in your chair and you can make some choices on where you want to put things. We're going to be putting in some pink dots here and there, so you can hold some space. I might put in a few pink dots, just like a 1, 2, 3. If you want to start putting in some of those, you can. I'm not going to do too many, but I just want to show you what they look like because I got excited. I'm just putting in a couple pink dots on the edges. But I'm not going to do any more of that, but I wanted to just try it. So I'm breaking the rules, but you know, it's okay. It's art. Who cares? Okay, so for me as an artist, I'm saying, Megan, you're good with the pink for right now. Pump the brakes, move to your next color. Okay, so that's what I want each of you to do is look at what color you're doing and say, okay, do I have enough of this? Do I want to add any more colors? If so, what and why? I do want to add a little bit of yellow. And then maybe I'll do some dotting detail. Okay? So this is really, this is a truly unique piece for each of us on what we're doing. To make yellow, it's yellow and white mixed together. This will give us our canary, our light, soft buttercup canary. And I'm just going to use a little water to loosen it up. Water is good in tonight's class for sure. And this abstract piece, you could spend, hours on it, or you could spend an hour, you could spend an hour and a half. Doesn't matter how long it takes you to do something. It's just about you finding the right pace for the work you're doing. So I'm going to do a little bit of yellow. Oh, this is fun. The curves in this inspiration are different than the curves in my painting, which is totally fine. I'm going to try to have a little bit looser of a hand. Loose hand. And anywhere I see solid color, like this big blue spot right here, I could be mindful and thoughtful to keep that as a solid color, or I could fill in that solid color with more lines, right? Like to fill in that space. So you can choose if you want to do layers on the inside of these solid colors, like more and more, or if you want to see it. So this being a lighter yellow, it's going to show up better on darker areas. So keep that in mind of what color you use and where again. So it's getting really funky, isn't it? This is like a really cool thing about abstract art. Ooh, this yellow looks great on the green. Be light with your wrist. Give your brush a little wiggle, kind of like you're looking at a rock. I love rocks and minerals, and I'm always inspired and in awe by the natural layers that occur from one to another. And this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But one color at a time, and it looks so cool, it looks so neat. But this is where you need to make some choices as an artist on where you want to add more or less, like where you want to stop. I feel like I'm getting pretty close. I'm going to go and do the dot detail as well. But some of the things you could ask yourself is, do I have any lighter areas where I want to add more contrast in color? Or do I have any darker areas that I want to add any of that lighter color? So dark areas that need a light line, or light areas that may need a darker line. And since I have yellow on my brush, I'm just going to start with some of this dot-like detail. And these are just like little dots. They don't need, I'm going to do like a 1, 2, I'll do 1 dot and then like 2 dots. And I'm just going to kind of work my way down and just do a couple accented dots of the yellow in different areas. So I'm going to do 1 and then I'm going to do a 1, 2. And I'm going to follow the curvature of a given line. See that? 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. You don't need to do it the exact same way I'm doing it, but I'm being thoughtful of how many I'm adding. Okay. Now to do this, I could visually break this up, and this is just me talking through my process. You can decide what you want to do. But if I break this up into 4 areas, like 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm gonna find another line, like halfway through, that I can add more yellow dots just to follow. And I'm gonna do this with lots of different colors. If you don't want to do these dots, so I'm doing a 1, 2, a 1, a 1, 2, a 1. And I'm just using the tip of the brush and I'm going next to a given line. See, it's just creating a nice balance. If you don't like these dots, you don't have to do them. Just using the tip of the brush. And you can figure out how many you want to add and where, but I'm gonna do the same thing with the pinks, and I'll probably do some with the dark blue. And this is a light yellow, so I want to do it in areas where there's dark background, right? Because you're not going to see yellow dots on this light green area. One, two, one, 1, 2, 1. Personally, I think that looks really cool. I like it. Again, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. Here, and you can do your own design too. White is another color you can use to add dots or to add lines. So I did white as our first color, remember? If you want to go back in with white to any darker areas to brighten it or to change it up, you totally can. So let's see. There is some darker contrasting red too. So maybe I'll just do some like red, like dark pink kind of dots. Just see what these look like. Any areas? Let's see, there's some in the middle here. Red could be a really nice accent to add. If you want to do some red lines, you could. I'm just going to start with red dots and go from there. Reds and blues and greens, they all go together. But you can pick and choose on how much detail you want to add. It's your choice. I may add some, like I'll do light green dots in some of the blue area for that contrast. My yellow isn't as bold and punchy as the inspiration. So if I wanted to make it more bold, let's just take a little yellow. Let's just experiment here. Let's just see how this goes. My light yellow was really light. Let's see here. I'm just gonna do a little bit of yellow on top of my light yellow in some areas. Just to see what that looks like. There we go. So if you wanted to add a little bit of brighter yellow on top of any of your lighter yellow, you could. You can see it just makes it a little brighter in spaces. If you put this plain yellow on top of a blue, you wouldn't be able to see it that well. Because this yellow really needs a little bit of white, but we're doing layering here. So it's standing out a little bit more. So that's an option. I'm experimenting with it and it's working for me. It's for consideration for you if you would like to try that or not. But I think one of the things, the most important things with tonight's class is not overdoing it in a way where as an artist, you kind of have to stay in check with what you want to do and why, and pausing, going really slow, just kind of being a part of the abstract piece will kind of bring you closer to what's going on. It may empower you to stop or may empower you to make a change. So just always follow your intuition. We do that in most of our classes, but tonight's class in particular, it's really just about trying to stay in control while letting go at the same time. It's pretty tricky. So I just added some bright yellow to this. I'm going to try to hold it up closer. I really like the punchiness it added. Let me see if I can turn my light on it. Nope, that's not helping. Let me see if I can turn this light off and see if that helps. Nope. Okay. But it's very, yeah. It made the yellow a little brighter, which was really fun. Bring this up a little higher. I love what's going on here. I love that I have this blue area over here that's kind of grounding the chaos that's happening on the right. I love that I can see some solid colors. I love that I have lots of lines and lots of detail. One of the ways that you can kind of turn yours up a notch to kind of highlight certain areas is bringing in that really light color, like a white, or bringing in that really dark color of like a navy blue to highlight certain areas. This movement I have going on here in the middle with the darks and the lights, those are all kind of standing out from one another intentionally. And you can pause and you can slow down to reflect on your work. I'm going to get a little bit of navy blue and do some navy blue dots next. And maybe in 5 minutes, we'll just do a little check-in with one another to see how it's going. Some of us may be done soon. Some of us may keep working on this. You know, we're not working in like a large scale. You may want to keep adding lots of details. Totally fine. Totally fine. You may want to keep playing with it. Maybe some lines are not as dark as you want them to be. So you can always do a second coat over a line, kind of like I did with my yellow, if you want to. And this, my navy isn't that dark over here. So I could just do go over some of these lines. I love this navy color. It's a great accent. So I'm doing a couple of these navy dots, following down some of these streams. One, two. I have this loop-de-doop in here I got to do something with. I don't know what I want to do yet in there. So there's certain areas that just like may be appealing to you, right? This is where you have the choice as an artist to spend as much time on this as you want. With a really light hand, you can get some really soft lines. Really soft. Adding a little water again to break up your paint, to make your brush strokes a little more smooth, is a very helpful thing to consider. And if you paint something you don't like, don't worry about it. You can always go back over and fix it. Let's see, I might take a little bit of this pink. You can go from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top, and sometimes different things will happen. I think in these classes, coming in with a really light hand, and the more lines you add, even soft lines. It's a really fun fluid thing, but it's just about, it's like with grass blades, it's like continuing to add the detail. You have that choice, right? Where to continue to add the detail. And with this inspiration, you know, we could count all of these lines. But I'm going to kind of stop and reflect, like I encourage you all to. And we may have areas you just want to like touch up, right? Or cover up. My loop-de-loop for me got out of hand a little bit here. So I might take a little bit of light blue and touch that up. Like this pink, I think it was the dark blue that I put in the middle. I'm just gonna kind of, I want this to be more lighter blue in the middle. So it's okay to touch something up and then go back in and add your detail. It's not anything to worry about. So don't hesitate to come in and like touch areas up. It's part of the process. I want this to be a light blue here. And then I'll come in and I'll recirculate some things. I would love to hear from folks. If you even want to unmute yourself, how is this experience going for you? It's very different than what we usually do, but I would love to hear if you are sweating, if you're enjoying it, if you feel calm. I'll add some more white dots probably as a finishing touch, but I'm going to slow my roll here with my lines.
Kind of liking it. It's different than trying to paint a thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And trying to figure out like what's the right thing to do or not.
Yeah, especially around shapes, right? Or like the dotting.
Yeah, it's I don't it's hard to like it. I don't know.
It is, it's different. And as
It's
artists, it helps us figure out what we like to paint and what we don't like to paint, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. My mother, you guys will love this. My mother hates abstract paintings. It makes her sweat. If I asked her to come to tonight's class, she'd be like, I'm good. She is more like, let me paint this thing and add color to it. And I'm good, Meg. So
I don't know.
if anybody wants to show, I know it's a little, if you might be nervous, but I think I'm pretty close here. At least letting it dry and maybe coming back to it at a later date. But I'm gonna go ahead and remove my pen. Dory is over there having a swell time, I'm sure.
I think my lines were too thick.
Oh, and Terry,
Yeah.
it's so cool.
I like the colors on that.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Oh, I don't know.
So Terry, what you could do is if you want to break up your lines, I see purples and greens. Do like a lighter purple or do a darker purple to break up the sides.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
that will create that lighter and darker contrast for you.
Okay. I might try that. Okay.
Try it.
Good.
Oh, Sharon's got a whole lot going on. Girl, I'm gonna need a close up of that on the Patreon app. That is so cool. So Sharon, you stuck very closely to your blues and purples.
Yeah.
And I don't see a ton of contrast, like darks and lights, just maybe taking a quick look from Zoom. You're very like in the same palette, which is fine. You don't have to go darks and lights as much as I did. Oh,
Yeah.
you have some. Oh, nice. Oh, cool. I
Okay.
love it.
It's hard to see with the light, but
It
yeah.
is, I know.
Me.
All right, here's Miss Dory's.
Ooh.
Oh, Dory's got an ocean going on. It's a little blurry, Dory.
Yeah, it is. Talk about chaos. I'm not sure why it's blurry.
You can, if you can unblur your background with the settings in
No,
Zoom.
yeah, right, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. But Terry, I do like yours. It's very like marbly. Like I really, I don't dislike it at all. I'm proud of each of you. It's also different.
There you go.
Oh, funky Dory. I like it.
It's one of those things that either tomorrow I will paint it black or I'll frame it, so I can't tell right now if I like
I
it or
know.
not.
Dory, what was the process like for you? Just to try to like follow the lines and try some things.
Yeah. No, it was fun. I mean, I get frustrated. I can't just do like a nice thin,
Yeah.
smooth line. So that's hard for me.
Yeah. The smooth lines, having different types of brushes to play around with is one way. But another is using water mixed with your paint helps tremendously. It makes your brush just glide a little more smoothly. But I give you all an A for effort and trying this new
Sure.
process. That's why we're here, right?
Mhm.
I love it. So let me see here. I know Miss Kim's is here too, but she's probably working away. All right. So one of my final things is I'm gonna let this dry and probably come back to it and just kind of think about it. But I'm gonna just take a look around as if I wanted to add white in any final spaces for any final touch points. You can consider that as well. You may walk away and you may come back to it and say, I could add this color here. If you really want to get, a jar tonight, ladies, take your canvas. Watch this. I'll do it. It's gonna blow your mind. We haven't done this that often. Turn your canvas in a different direction. Talk about mind blowing. My painting looks totally different. Oh, then turn it the other way. Wow. Isn't that fun? Because you might like another direction that you have that you could work from. Right? So I'm going to make my pin a little bit bigger here. So for anyone on the call who's watching this, it's really fun. This looks like an octopus. I definitely don't like it that way. We're going to keep turning it.
Yeah, mine looks like a giant avocado, one of those things and stuff.
A giant avocado. All right. All
When I
right.
turn it sideways, yeah.
This one's kind of cool. My blue on this side versus this side. I could do that. So it's kind of fun to figure out, where you could turn it. And then this upside down, totally, upside down with the blue down looks kind of neat too. So you can consider that as well. So one really fun thing that people do with abstract paintings like this is you can use them for like little note cards or thank you cards for like friends and family. If you have like acrylic paper, you could, I could pull this off and I could cut this into fours, right? And write little love notes or thank you notes on the other side to friends and family and stick it in a little envelope, right? A little bit of handcrafted work. You could buy like cardstock and paint on cardstock, and you could do that as a fun little gift. And you could have fun with abstract in those ways. So sometimes it's fun just to play with lines and play with colors and have an idea of what you want your palette to be. You can always, Google or go onto Pinterest, like abstract paintings and see what color palettes that inspire you. See what forms inspire you. If lines were hard for you tonight, you can find some more blotchy style designs, go grab a fork upstairs or grab a Q-tip. There's a lot of different ways you can create abstract forms. But I think it's fun to think outside the box and to try new things because this is a new type of craft, right? That you can be doing that incorporates paint and painting that is just a little bit different than painting, a cardinal or doing a landscape. So I'll always try to bring in something new with these classes to introduce you to just new ideas on ways you can create things and practice your creativity, thinking in different ways. So we always will grow from that, whether it's challenging or not. Let me tell you, sometimes it's hard not having a plan, but coming up with a loose plan will at least get you started. All right. So I'll hang tight. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to encourage you to keep working. You can take a break. I feel with abstracts, it's good to not rush yourself, whether that means stopping or continuing just to kind of reflect on what you have. I love the idea of turning something too, turning something to the left, to the right, top to bottom. Just gives you alternative perspectives. And for anyone watching the recording, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We always love to see one another's work. So if you are interested and able to download the Patreon app, it's a great place to post your work for others to see it and comment. I don't know about you all, but I really get inspired and I get excited by seeing all of your work. So I always want to thank you for sharing it there. And many of you paint outside of our classes as well, or experiment with
Sure.
things. So I want to thank you guys for sharing your artwork there.
You
What
like
you're up
painting
to.
my arm.
Oh, you got paint on your arm.
Yeah.
Amazing. It happens. I'm pretty clean tonight, ladies.
Yeah.
Besides my pregnant swollen hands, which is just
Yeah.
silly, but. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause the recording. If anyone has questions that's
Okay.
watching the recording, feel free to let me know and I'm happy to answer those for you.